I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 51. In this episode, we're going to be doing a paintover of an image that was posted on the Swatches Facebook group. And of course, we're going to be getting to that in a couple of minutes. We're going to allow a couple of minutes for people to join in live. And we're also going to be taking questions that were posted on the Facebook group as well. So if you just sit tight, we're going to ease into this live stream and do a little painting and answering some questions. Of course, we also have a couple of announcements to get started on as well. If you're new to the channel or new to my videos, then welcome. I am artist Clint Cearley, best known for my work with Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. But this channel is more about art education than it is about my particular own artwork, and hopefully you guys can pick up some stuff, some tips that were able to help you and improve your work along the way. So I just need to move some stuff around here. Let me, OBS looks like it's doing okay, so I'm gonna move that out of the way. Okay. There we go. Okay, I was looking at my notes. I wrote down some notes of announcements we need to go over, so I was taking a look at that and see where we are. Let me just put them in Photoshop. That's the image we're going to be looking at. If it will let me switch over. Okay, announcements. Number one, if you have not joined the Swatches Facebook group, that is where a lot of the information about this channel and the events and the things going on with Swatches is announced. If you want up-to-date information about scheduling of the live streams, or what the art challenge is, or what the new products are that's coming out, that's the best place to get it. Just go to www.swatches.group. The link should be in the description as well. Announcement. If you want to meet me in person and also see some really great art and get in some cool events, Spectrum Fantastic Art Live March 29th in Kansas City, Missouri. So it's just coming up at the time of this video recording. That's just about a month off, the end of the month. So I will be there. I will not be having a table there, but I will just be attending. Spectrum is an annual book, and that is a collection of the best fantasy science fiction art compiled into this annual book. I do have a couple of images coming out in, I think it's number 26 this year. So Spectrum 26 got a couple images in that, and I will also be attending that. It will be coinciding with Planet Comic-Con. So if you like Comic-Cons as well, you join in and see that while you're there. Number three, consultation dates are still open. I need to open up some more, but you can go to artmentor.com if you want to schedule a personal video chat with me, and we can go over whatever you need to about you in your artwork and your skills, or just looking at your portfolio, whatever you need going forwards. We can go over that at artmentor.com to schedule it. Next up, Swatches. 50K hype. Just in the last week or two, Swatches has passed 50,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. We've been doing this channel for years and years now, and I appreciate everyone who has followed me and who has watched the videos, has become part of the community, and big thanks to you guys. If I wouldn't continue to do this if there wasn't enough an audience to warrant it, and I appreciate the love and the involvement that you guys have shown. But we've got quite a few people joining in here live. What is the number on that? I'm just trying to move that over so I can see. Okay, we've got 14 of us in here right now. Someone, Rex PvP, Joshua, Art of the Viscerals, I'm not sure how you say that. Rapixer. Kina. Hey, Kina. I haven't seen you out here on the live stream in a while. Yeah, phone rings. Always something happens when you try to sit down to do that. Okay, so that is a couple announcements. I also wanted to look at the current challenge. If you're wanting to get in on the current challenge or curious what it is, this will be a month-long challenge, 2 weeks for the sketch, 2 weeks for the final, and it is the Gilded Guardian. This is a Magic the Gathering style image, horizontal, same ratio as an MTG image, and you are to depict a cat sphinx kind of character with a golden floral type of mane coming out in front of a stone archway set in a wall with a beautiful garden behind them. They're kind of a guardian to this forest area. And if you want to join in on that, then we would love to have you. You still have a week before the sketch is due. That would be next week. Then 2 weeks after that in order to get in on the final. So yeah, that's what's going on. Anyone is welcome to use this idea and create images. You're also free to go out there and post it for pure feedback on the Facebook group. But if you want to get feedback from me personally during the next live stream, you do need to become a patron at the $10 level or above. I have to do that in order to keep the numbers down a little bit. Otherwise, I can't go over everyone that would just send it in if there wasn't some kind of gateway on that. So there you go. And all these images are completely yours. I have no ownership of the image. They're not for me personally. They're used in the extent that I can show them in the live stream and that sort of thing. But aside from that, they're all yours. So don't worry about copyright or anything on that side. Okay. Also did a poll. We're going to start doing in between episodes, in between live streams, between these sketches and the finals. And I was curious what you guys wanted to do or would like to see covered in the in-between weeks. And this was the poll that we put out on the Swatches group. And the top ones here, just a chill painting, drawing stream. So probably just watching me, maybe me and some other guys, if we have some guest artists, drawing, painting, chatting, answering some questions. I also thought painting games was pretty popular. So I've messaged some other guys about joining in as guest artists who might like to get in on some of this stuff. I'll let you know when that gets figured out who would be and maybe when they would be joining. But the rest of these are going down. Obviously, these are choices as well. If you have not voted on this, go out to the Swatches Facebook group and make sure you get your vote in as well. I'm seeing lots of lots of votes by multiple people on this. I'm not sure. Maybe I should have just mentioned pick one, but anyway, if everybody's doing it, I suppose it evens out. There we go. Okay, you are Suarez. All right. Rapixer. Okay, that makes it better. Art of Travis Earls. I should have spaced it in the name. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like viscerals. Okay, odd. Kina says, thank you for mentioning the MTG card style illustration. That changes the way I think about the composition. I have 9 thumbs so far, still not satisfied. Yeah, it is the MTG style. We've been doing quite a few concept art challenges, and I really did want to get back to an illustration. This is a finished image that you would want to be ready to get printed or to be used, and not just a concept. We need the full character. We need the creature, full creature in the environment, well lit, well rendered. All of that style, and it is the horizontal style. It's 3,000 pixels by 2,200, so keep it in that. And also, feel free to be creative within the framework of the brief. Don't go too far. For example, down here, like you see in this is also posted on the group if you need to go see it. Creative license within the description is good, but don't change the core elements. This isn't about reinventing the wheel or your interpretation. So don't look at this and go, okay, it's about a guardian and a gateway. So I'm going to do a space marine in front of a teleportation tube. No, that's way too far off. If you want to change up, bring in some other animal characteristics into the character, that's fine. Somebody had even posted on the Facebook group, I was thinking maybe it might be in the snow, and then there would be like a beautiful snow forest behind it. That's possible. Now that one it's a little bit far from what the description was. There wasn't anything specifying snow. So if it was a professional project, that's probably something you would just email your art director real quick and say, hey, I've got some good concepts of this being in a snowy terrain, but it would still be beautiful. Would that be acceptable? Would that cause any problems? And for a lot of projects like Magic the Gathering, the art director is trying to create a lot of cohesion between the story and a lot of other images. And sometimes images are more standalone. It doesn't matter whether it's that way or not, because it doesn't have to be consistent with any other image. Maybe it's a standalone character and location. Other times, art director might say, hey, I like the idea of the creativity, but it has to also match this other scene because somebody else is, painting the wall itself as a standalone card. So it has to be the same, terrain. So that, just a little quick feedback on that. All right, let's start with one of the questions, and then we'll jump into Photoshop and do that. Timmy says, I have recently seen so many arts trying to do 3D or realistic draw recently. What do you think about simple or cartoonish art? It's completely viable. There isn't anything right or wrong about either one of those. I reckon there's probably more tutorials, education, and promotion of the more realistic or 3D style or rendered images, but that doesn't mean that there isn't also an industry for the other side. I would say that probably the more realistic is a bit more of the hot button right now, like not hot button, but a hotter topic, a bigger part of the industry right now. But if you want to do the simple or cartoonish, then do it, but do it well. It's really easy to do cartoons poorly, but it's deceptively difficult to do them well. And there are some guys that have made a good living and have done it for decades of doing good cartoon style images. So I would say if that's where your heart is, that's what you really enjoy, and you've got some proficiency at it, then do it. Stick with it. It doesn't hurt to maybe also round it out with some other skills in case the project comes along, but there you go. Joshua says, I might not be able to submit a color sketch next week as I don't have any real painting experience. Would you be able to give some tips on how to approach the painting aspect next week? Yeah, that's a good question. We could talk about that a bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be in color, although a simple color comp would be good. And it's usually a better idea to do that for an art director so they have some clue of the color scheme that you're going for, or maybe it would help indicate the lighting a little bit. So yeah, that would be good. If you want to know the painting, how to approach the painting process, you can check out my Making Magic video. It's multiple years old, but it shows the painting progress that I had through multiple Magic the Gathering images that I did. And of course, if you go out to the store, I've got like 5 or 6 other Making Magic images where I show the painting progress. So you can see the process that I go through to do it. Okay, so let's jump in on this Paintover. Oh, nope. Oh, nope. So yes, Christ Suarez is the one who did this image, And it is being used with permission. So thank you to him for letting us use this during this video, and is being used with permission for this context of doing a paint over. Let's get I had to turn the heater on. The heater's finally catching up a little bit. I don't need that coat anymore. So some of you are likely already thinking, oh, a paint over? That's awesome. How can I also get my images painted over like this? Short answer to that exact question is you can't. The way this works is I might see an image that I think would make for an interesting paint over, and I will ask the person, hey, can I use this during part of the paint over? And yeah, it's me asking you, not you asking me. I don't do paint overs on request unless it's part of my Patreon or one of the consultations. My top patrons over on patreon.com/swatches, they get paint overs videos, and also I could do that during the consultations. I give you a little feedback during the art challenges, not usually paint overs. So there you go. Right. So he has this character whose name I don't know, but we are going to approach it, how to push it a little further, and we're also going to be taking a look at some of these images by League of Legends, splash images. It really has the feel of a League of Legends splash image. So we're going to reference some of those, but let's talk through it a little bit. And also, I need to import my brushes from my other computer to this one. Every time I open it up, I want to see the brushes from my other system. Okay, let me save this. Oh, also... Nope. All right, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this brush setting. Oh. Brushes. Is this a different... Oh, I don't need the brush window. Somewhere I have... my brush window is hiding. Brush settings. There we go. Okay. I want to turn on a little color dynamics. 4 would be right. All right. Then I want to save that. There we go. Okay, so let's problem solve this a little bit before we just jump into the painting. What's working, what's not working? Initial reaction is this is a very strong image. He's done a lot of things right with this, and I don't know what any of the references is that he might have used, but it's for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Obviously, it is exaggerated. She's overly sensualized, and you've got all this magic and, you know, edge to it. But there is some things that we can definitely see as an improvement in order to level it up. You know, like I said, you know, if we want to make it like League of Legends, like this is a kind of League of Legends image, beautiful characters, most of them, and really dynamic lighting. This one's very close to the same sort of image with Vlad, the character. We got some of these other ones that are really dynamic images with really dynamic lighting, good shapes. So you can see why I saw a lot of, well, that's just really big. You can see why I saw a lot of connection between the two of them, these sort of images and the ones he did. So that is the sort of level that I can see this image getting to if we can bring a little more nuance to it. So over here, what are the things that's catching my eye? Well, in no particular order, we have the values. We have the whitest white of the whole image is right there on her hip, which isn't a focal point. The focal point should be, in this image, her face and probably this sword. That's the most important thing. Well, you would also say her chest. I mean, you know, to be honest, a lot of people are going to look there, and it's got light on it. But for the context of this image, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's what you're going for. So we don't want as much focus down here. That's not going to help us do anything. Number two, the head is a little small for this body. So that needs to be expanded out a little bit. Like if you look at the length of that that shin, that head is like 1/2 of the length of the shin. So you know, you want to allow some foreshortening and some exaggeration, because like, I mean, you got images like this, right? Super exaggerated on the perspective. A lot of these are. So I don't want to knock it for having exaggeration, but it needs to be a little more consistent with itself. So head size is another issue. A big thing is the general readability. All right, guys, if you would, please keep it in English in the chat. I don't know Spanish, and if you're saying stuff that I can't read that's not okay, then I still get the knock for it. So you got to keep it in English. Okay, so readability. We're losing a lot of the good detail and design. Like in this gets very muddy. If you back this off any distance, you're losing everything in here. This just becomes kind of all together. That's all sort of lost. There's some nice design and stuff going on there, but that all sorts blends in together as well. So we want to make that a little more clear. Another issue is the space here. We're running the head right up to the edge of the canvas. So we need a bit more headroom there, which isn't a big deal to add, but it's got to be in there. That or the body needs to decrease in size a little bit, you know, for that. The magic effect is a good idea, but it's so strong. It's basically one note. It's all 100% as vibrant and powerful as it possibly can be. And there's times for that, but like I said, I think a bit more nuance would actually help it out a bit. All right, so let's just get into it. And yeah, no particular order. It's not like I planned out how I'm gonna approach this. So I'm going to duplicate, you know what, let me move this over here so you guys might be interested in seeing what I'm doing with the layers palette. I'm going to duplicate the background because I just want to make the whole thing a bit smaller so that we can get some more headroom in there. So we do it about like that. Oh, we could add it on top, I guess. We don't really need the whole thing smaller. Do 105. Yeah, let me step to it. I keep, maybe everybody doesn't know what I'm doing here. So I want to go image. You know, I always do the shortcut. Image canvas size. And this is where you can adjust, obviously, how much space you have in your canvas. I want to add 5% more to the top, so 105%. And then I want to anchor it on the bottom. That way it only adds it to the top and not to the top and bottom. Normally it splits it, whatever the percent is, half on top, half on bottom. Okay, so there we go. We added that. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to grab that back one. I'm going to move it up. And that just gives me a quick continuation of some of the shapes there. Okay. Actually, if we're going to make that head even bigger, we probably need more than that. do it again. There we go. Now we just want to mesh those together a little bit. This is just a round brush, and I squeezed it so that it is pinched like that, a little ellipsis. It has some color color variance set into it. Alright, that just meshes it together. We'll probably come back and clean that up a little bit. Now, let's grab the head and get that to a more appropriate size. Instead of having to worry about fixing the whole body and meshing that into the background, just grab the head. And I want to do a edit, copy merged, paste. Scale that up a little bit. I'm guessing at this. I'm just guessing what seems a bit more right. Okay, that seems better. Another thing is the spot on the bottom. You're running the hip right there, right on the edge on the bottom as well. So you're basically touching with the head on the top and the hip on the bottom. And we need to change that. Either it needs to be cropped off like this, or it needs to be cropped like that. And personally, I don't know that adding this is really going to help you with anything. I think actually cropping it off a little bit here puts the attention back up on the focal points. But I don't want to lose too much of this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I'll let that be moved up a little bit. And we also can get some overlap on the arms, so that's not bad right now. Now we can move up. Just about there, yeah. Yeah, on that line. Okay, now what are we going to do? We want to establish a little more planes between the different levels of the image: foreground, midground, background. Right now, they're all sort of blurring together a bit, and that's something that needs to be established. So let's take a look at some of these other images. You know, background, softer. The edges are softer, the tones are softer, and the colors are less saturated in order to separate them out a bit. Some more. Here, how do they do it here? They use offsetting colors. So they have a green background, warm foreground. So the difference in the color temperatures is a big difference. Even though this background white is value-wise bright, the green is fairly dull, and these yellows and oranges help the foreground to stand out. We also have, like in this one, again, the background is just, it's softer, the values are less harsh, edges are less harsh. Same sort of thing here. There is a color variation, with the background being cooler, foreground being warmer, and the value scheme lessening as it goes back. So those sorts of ideas are what we want to carry over to this image. So I'm going to make, you know what, I'm going to just paint it on a new one, I think. I'm going to grab a blue and go over some of the stuff in the background. Add a little atmosphere, soften out some of those tones. I don't want to go real light with it, but adding in a bit more color and lightening it up will help keep the major values in the foreground. Now notice that I'm not using white. A lot of times people can think, oh, I need to brighten it up, so I'm going to grab white and I'm going to brighten it up. I see this all the time. There, I'm painting light. No, you're not. You're graying it out. White has no color, right? It's colorless, which means that you're just diluting the color that's there. You're halving the color that's there by adding the white. So when we lighten it, we also need to be adding color into it. That's why I'm using this nice blue. Now, it's not super vibrant. I mean, I could probably even more, but it's got a good amount of color to it, and that keeps it from graying out as I lighten it. I don't know how finished we're going to make this, or whether we're going to just block this in. We'll see as we go, see how quickly or slowly it progresses. And if you guys have questions during the live chat, if you're watching live, then feel free to post those. Put swatches in your comment, the word swatches in your comment, so that I know that it is to me. Otherwise, I don't read and follow all of the chat. Okay, so you can see by turning that on and off, it helps to separate the foreground and the background, or the midground and the background. And you can even go a bit more if you wanted to punch up some of these values a bit more, and that would be okay. That is giving me the color variation, right? Yeah, okay. Now we've got this this character back here that is being like energy sucked out of its mouth, sort of thing. But it's so it's so little done with it. It's just not realized. It's not rendered. It's not being utilized enough to really make it really worth being there. So I'm probably going to just take that out. Either you really need to have a whole thing and you have like, you know, 3-4 people back here all having the energy being pulled out of them, or just get rid of it. I mean, this is pretty strong as it is. And if you do get rid of them, then you could probably just crop it in more like that. So that they're closer to being on thirds and then not having quite as much space out there. So that's to him. I don't really want to have to go paint all these guys and realize that, so I'm not going to bother with that. Okay. The artist says, so I need to separate the background with some midtones. Well, we need to separate the background from this foreground by having some tonal differences, value difference, value range difference, and color range difference, and in order to do that. Okay, now let's pull up in here some other things just with like the pose. This is a little odd. So we have these big shoulder plates going on here, but this shoulder is really high, and it's like, okay, shoulder plates can be really high, but look how high the arm is connecting. That's a bit too much. So the arm's coming in here. I mean, her shoulder would be like that. That's way up here past her chin. And that wouldn't be right, especially given the fact that she is reaching out. So her arm is being held out here. It's carrying a lot of the weight out there. When you extend your arm, the shoulder has to drop. It doesn't stay up here and extend. unless you're forcing it to do so. So we want to drop that shoulder down a bit, and then also let the elbow pull out some. The elbow is here as if she's got her arm pulled in tight and high. So yeah, we want to just drop that down. And it looks like there's enough room here that looks a little long, so we're going to just see about move that over a bit. Muhammad says, how do you pick the color palette for illustrations? Do you start by coloring with pre-picked colors or just add another color layer on top? I don't work so much in black and white to color anymore. Maybe a little bit more when I'm doing like concept art. But how do I pick a color palette? I answer that to a degree in the color ebook that I went over, because each color scheme has its own strengths and weakness. So if you're working in a monochromatic, not monochromatic, analogous color scheme, that would be like saying, I'm just going to use greens through blues. That would be analogous. They're all in the family. They're very close together. That's going to have a harmonious color scheme. That's going to have a harmonious feeling. And that's where I usually start. What is the feeling that you're trying to come up with? And that's what it tells you what colors need to be in there. Analogous is harmonious. Complementary color schemes are more divisive. There's contrast between them. So that would be using things that are opposites, like violet and orange, or violet and green. These guys are more of the opposites. Red and green are opposites. Yellow and violet, sorry, are opposites. Then you have more well-rounded images that have like 3 colors. So it'd be your primaries or your secondaries. It's 3 evenly spaced ones. And yeah, that's part of it. Also, color scheme is, how much punch does it need to have? Is this a nuanced one where it's going to have subtler colors? And a lot of the classic paintings have strength through nuance and through subtle color changes, rather than what you see more from marketing images, which uses brightness of colors, the big impact of colors. So yeah, that's part of it. And sometimes I'll see some images that I like and I'll be like, that's a good idea for a color scheme. Or I wonder how that would work, but if we switch the dark tones to being cooler or warmer or whatever. Do you know Ranj, I don't know how you pronounce that, G-I-A, yeah. I completely don't know how to pronounce that. I know of their artwork. I do not know them, but I know of their artwork. Beautiful work. I've saved a number of their images for reference myself. Okay, so we are grabbing this arm. Did I draw this? No, this was posted by one of the viewers in the Facebook group, and we're doing a little paint over of it. Just trying to improve it a little bit. So you see here, we've dropped that shoulder down to be a bit more of the normal shoulder level. And I also feel like the arm going straight across, maybe not real natural. Usually it's going to go up a little bit. The weight's going to hang on the elbow, and you'll get a bit of a bend on that. So I'm going to copy that and paste that. So we have the upper arm, and then we're going to move this over. What does that need to be right now? There we go. Yeah, it's going to get a little complicated up here with... I'm going to just use this normal one and just try to paint some of this out before I get too confused with what's happening. Okay, something on that line. Yeah. I'm losing some right there. All right, so that puts that back down. Anything else we're going to adjust? Like, this still seems really long to me. It's not really coming towards us, so it just looks like that's very long. I'm going to grab the end of this and just move that over a bit. Shorten that up a little bit. Pull that up to there. Okay. Now we need to start looking at some of the other clarity issues and a bit of the lighting. Okay. Now, I also want to come in here and adjust levels, and I want to move some of the midtones up so we get some of the detail back. So you can see all this detail in some of the dark leather, like all that right there. See, I can even make out a lot of that until I brighten it up. But I don't need it everywhere, so that's an adjustment layer, and it has a mask automatically. So I'm going to reverse that so the mask is all blacked out, and then I can just paint with a white brush. And I'm going to use just a soft airbrushy kind of brush. And I can paint in where I want that more exposed area, that brighter version of everything to show through. And this part that's getting really, really blacked out, that I'm losing detail on, is where I want to bring that up. So some of this stuff, like that's getting sort of lost. There's a lot of good work in here. One of the things might be that their screen, yeah, your screen might be, yeah, I have to allow any links, just click on that. Your screen might be set really bright. So on my screen, it seems very, very dark. You might want to check on the brightness of your screen, see if that's a bit too high. Just make sure it's calibrated. Actually, that can get darker down there. That's okay. Okay. So, flipping that on and off, you can see the difference where it brings so much of that information back, that visual information. It just brings a lot of clarity back into the image. That saves me from having to go in there and try to make up a bunch of that stuff. But it's well rendered and it's very clean. It's just, we don't want it to get lost because it is good rendered content. Okay, next up, let's just make a new layer. What's this one? Nothing? Okay. Go back to my tilty brush. There's nothing fancy with the tilty brush. It just... Changing up brushes now and then is a good way to make your brain start thinking differently. All right, I want to play up some of this blue light that the original... You know what, let's go back and grab this. I'm going to toss that on top so that we can see the difference here. There we go. Okay, that's the original, and we can just flip that on and off to see the difference there. Red asks, what's a good enough or large enough canvas size and pixels to work with if you intend for the end product to be 1280 by 720, well, I guess it's the resolution that matters to you. I mean, I generally find working, I might sketch at about 3,000 pixels, but if I'm doing a image that should be well detailed, then I like to work at about 6,000 to 7,000, being the maximum, you know, the like width would be 6,000 or 7,000. And I've gone up from there depending on how big and how complex the image is. But there's a point at which, even at 3,000 pixels, you can't get the detail that you need. You're going to get a little kind of artifacting going on, and some of your brushes aren't going to work well because they're higher resolution brushes with the kind of details that it has. So I'm going to suggest don't go under 3,000, but you know, if you want to try 5 or 6, that's probably fine. It just depends the type of image and the amount of resolution that you need out of the final. Okay, so here, yeah, we're going to be doing some stuff with the blue. I'm going to pick a nice blue light, very opaque, and let some of this blue come over here. Now, what I want to do is make a separation between the blue light of things being hit on this side, and we have the warm light from that side. And we're not really getting that right now. This is a common problem / mistake, is that doing rim light as a line. Rim light doesn't work like that. Or that's not a thing. Rim light always follows and shows the form of the object. And make sure that you're not using it as a line. This is really, really common, but you have to make sure that you're using it to tell the form of the object, not just making a line on the outside. It's not a stroke line. So like on here, if it's coming down there, then it's going to start spilling over the top of that spherical shape. And it might even be coming in a little bit and bouncing up there with the, you know, indicating a bit more of a point on that spot. And then down here, it's going to be catching that entire plane until it hits that higher plane, and maybe it can't get over that higher plane. So we want to make sure that that is being caught. Same thing down here. It's going to be catching this plane, that plane. It might even be catching a bit of this plane over here. Then you're going to have the small light, that small shadow from the thickness of that leather there. So always remember, it's not just a line. It's an actual way to tell the form of what's going on. So we want to make sure that we get that. And think about where it spills over to. It's also going to be picking up some of the three-dimensional shapes of, stuff along it, like that. And it starts being able to tell the audience more about the object and what its angle is, what its three-dimensional properties are. So that's how you ought to be able to approach more of a edge light like that. And then I would push it further. I would have nice bright light here. The shiny leather can be picking up lights pretty well. Probably going to get some more on this side too. We can help tell that rounded form with this other light. Just getting a bit of spillover from that side. And we need to get this idea and start running with it more. So like this hair, we've got hair down here, which really wasn't rendered out too much. I think they might have forgot to do much with that. But let's shift that a bit more to this, get something a bit more brilliant. Too big, too big. Brighten that up a little bit. This whole image is probably a little small. Yeah, I'm gonna punch this up because my brushes are getting, oh no, not 300, I need 3,000. Talking about resolution, that was too small. My brushes are having to get too small for me to get what I need to out of them. Okay, now I can start doing some of this. Back here, then we have some of that darker hair back in there. Cool. Get some more of that. Again, we're thinking of this as a form. This is a sphere. Spheres are rounded, therefore we want to have rounded, graduated light on it. You can use a little smudge tool and smooth that out. The cast shadow, though, is probably going to be harsher. This thing is going to be catching some blue light up here. I'm not sure the form of that. I'm going to just kind of guess it's somewhere around there. And we might go back and add some even brighter white light on it. But for now, I'm more interested in trying to do more with color than just straight brightness. And if I were actually to turn that way, it would make it a lot faster. I could just do individual strokes. Okay. Muhammad asks, hey, Swatches, how do you know at what point does the rim light start and stop? I have to guess. You know, I have to guess. I've got to, in my mind, I'm kind of working like this. It starts from having a good understanding of three-dimensional form. So if you're imagining a sphere, which is more difficult to do when there's actually lag with your brush, and I'm thinking of the volume of it, right? It's kind of like a globe. If you were thinking about a globe, you have like the equator and then, you know, that sort of thing. And I'm thinking the light is here, and how far is the light coming on this? Where is what's called the terminator? Where is the edge between the light and the shadow? And for this one, it's just like that section right there. And so it's not going to get on anything facing to us. It's only going to be on things that are like, you know, it's split. I mean, 1, 2, like 1/4, maybe even like 1/6 of the object. And so, you know, I'm thinking about this, and it's going to be like, oh, about 1/6 of that, 1/5 of that. And then on this, you know, this is a shape, so it's just going to be that part of it. And then, you know, this is a shape, so it's just going to be on that section. And that's how I'm approaching it. Like each one of these is a volume, and I'm kind of thinking about how much of that is being hit. So some guesstimation. And that's why references can be really, really helpful, is because it's not always easy to guess that. So, yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. And then we're going to just continue that. We're going to have some up here. I have some on this thing. Maybe some on the opposite side of that thing. We're going to have some in the hair. I'm going to switch that the other way. So on the opposite side of the hair where it's coming over, and that plane. Again, this is where you really start having to think about planes of the image. And I'm going to give her a little bit more volume to her hair there. It's more like hair that sort of curls around a little bit, has some body to it. It's more sensual than just straight. So, you know, you're already trying to establish a sensual nature to the characters. Yeah. What kind of tablet am I using is a question. I am using, for this computer, an XP pen. I think it's Deco 1. I believe it's Deco 1 from XP pen. Yep. Just use a little dodge. And pop that up a little bit. Then I need the same thing, right? I'm thinking about this. This is a sphere. So that's going to round over, and stuff on that side of the face is going to be more blue. I'm going to just glaze some blue over that. And then we're going to move in. Nope, I don't need spotlight. Nope. Then we move in over here. All right, now we really have to start thinking about the forms of what's going on. Get some smaller brush and do some more work here. The side of the nose is going to round up and then down. And then where it rounds up, it's going to be facing off that way. So that's going to be catching blue on that side. The top of that nostril is going to be catching some. The center of the nose there is going to be catching some. This angle is facing off that direction. So we're looking for the angles that are facing towards those windows. Top of the lips, going to be catching some. Top of the chin area down here is going to be catching some. Not so much there, there's going to be an angle there. But anything facing upwards along there is going to be catching some. Along there on the inside is going to be catching some. The top of eyeball shape there is going to catch some. Might even have a little bit catching on the eyelashes themselves. So there. Maybe not as much underneath that because it's going to be angling downwards. And we need to establish that other nostril a little bit. Maybe even on that side. This is still a rounded shape. A little indication on that side. And that's probably going to be catching some shadow. Now, on this side, this light is being treated on the skin as if it's really high in intensity because it's punching the light up right up next to white. And it's not treating anything else that way. So I'm going to take that down a little bit. I'm going to lower the opacity down to like 20%. And then I'm going to glaze over some of this. Just add a bit of color back into that skin. Question, isn't the hairline weird? How would you sort that area out? It's a hairline weird. I mean, it's a little high. I mean, if it was me, I would probably set it down a little bit. I don't know if this is a particular character. Generally, it would probably be, you know, closer to that. And then this would be folding over from about here. So, again, I don't know. Maybe that's one of her characteristics is that she has like a high forehead. Joshua asks, do you depict planes further away from the light source but still facing it with a less saturated color or a slightly lower value color? Yeah, I mean, further away that the plane is from the object, distance-wise, you can't really even see that. So distance is going to lower the intensity of the light, and it's also going to lower it as it changes angles. So this part is going to be getting a lot less light than this part. Some of it's still going to skim along and catch along this area, but it's not going to be nearly as much as that because it's facing towards it. So yeah, it's going to be like, you know, less saturated. But the distance thing isn't that big of a deal. I mean, this is all within just a foot or two distance-wise difference between the objects. So that's not going to be a big thing on this one. And I'm also trying to be open to artistic, you know, freedom a little bit. Some of this, that can be punched up a little bit. Some of this I want to punch up a bit more. That, in this case, probably shifting more to some violets. Maybe it has just a little bit of that warm in there. But otherwise, a lot more of this could be cooler in tone. Now, cast shadows could also help this thing quite a bit, and there is some here, but I don't think they're real accurate. So like the cast shadow of this should be across that face, going across there until it gets into that area. And then the cast shadow from that coming up on the face is probably going to be a bit more. You're going to have a cast shadow from this ear up there. And then you're going to have a cast shadow of... Oh, come on, let me move this. You're going to have a cast shadow like all up in here from the shoulder. And things generally lose detail as they get into shadow, so I'm going to lower some of that. And for quickness, I'm going to just blur some of that edge together. There we go. I'm going to simplify that a little bit. This is another place that's going to be catching cast shadow there. All the top of this is going to be catching more shadow. I'm also going to get some more shadow on top of that cheek. Going to get a bit more form underneath the eye, and the shape of the eye there I can pull in. You can see that a little better. You know what, let's just go to the round one and go smaller. So we want to establish the shape, the form of that spherical shape of the eyeball there, and maybe even pull out a bit there on the top. We're just losing, we don't want to lose so much to blackness. It would be better to have a bit of color in there just to warm it up. And let's go lighter with that, and then we can even go darker for the white of the eye, actually inverse it. Let that part be lighter, and then run some nice pure color around the eyes. Let that pop a little bit. The eyebrows are particularly dark. It's like you just went for black on the eyebrows. But let's see if we can do something a bit more subtle, like work some color into those. On this side, we could be using green. And also just soften them out a little bit so they don't seem quite so harsh. Maybe get a bit of the red into it on this side, or just kind of skin tone but darker. And that way the eyes are darker than the eyebrows, and they'll stand out a little bit. Hey Clint, I don't know if you're planning to keep the color of the throne, but it's too close to the color scheme of the character, in my opinion. Some sort of hue saturation. Yeah, I am. The throne needs to be adjusted a little bit as well, just to keep clarity. I'm kind of just moving from element to element at this point. I'll brighten that up a little bit. That's a rounded shape. That should bleed over there. Also, the side of that's going to be catching some light. It's easy to punch up the values, like here on the face. What I want to do is add some color back into it, add some value back into it. Then if I need more pop, I can put it there, but I'd rather bring it closer back to neutral and then play with it. So we can turn that on and off and you kind of see the difference there. A lot more color, a lot more form. You can tell when you start establishing the angles like this, all of a sudden the form just starts really saying something. And you can sense the volume of the character and what's going on. So that is super, super important on something like this. Adding some of these colors in. So like by limiting how much black is in there, when you put a little black here or there, it really makes it pop better. Yeah. So much better there. I don't know why that went so green. So on there, I'm going to lock that layer so I can't paint outside of it. I'm going to grab this blue color, set my brush to color, not saturation, and I'm going to paint that blue. Why is that not painting blue? That confuses me. Set that to color. See if it makes any difference in me doing it this direction. No? Huh. Okay, well, I will just hand paint it then. Yeah, the green is getting a little too far. It still needs to keep within the blue realm. So I'm going to just paint out some of that. And then if I want to, I could use brush. Oh, do I have that in here? Yeah. I have this big bristly monster. And I can just wiggle that around a little bit. Give indication of some sort of hair feeling to it. And then if I want to, I can come back and establish some strands out of that. And set that down a little bit. Probably don't need to put in strands at this point. It's like overly detailed, but there we go. Yeah, just felt like it. All right, what were some other questions we had got? Just a quick break on that. Let me eat a chip. I had a question of what is the next challenge? I did answer that, but I'll say it on stream as well. The next character challenge has not been determined. This last challenge, I put a vote out on the Patreon for what you guys wanted to do. I was curious what your interest was, and you guys wanted to do a creature, which is why we're doing the creature challenge. And yeah, also what was really popular was another redesign challenge. So we got a suggestion for like a redesign of Lord of the Rings or fantasy Star Trek. So I'll keep that in mind. We might do that next time. I didn't have anything said on that. Okay, now Jonathan had said, how to gain the most from limited time or brain resources for artistic activity. I'm struggling with that every day. It's really hard to do creative things when most of my day I have to spend on an artistic job. He goes on a little bit, but I had actually wrote up a bit on that. So let me read through this list because we all have to run into this at some point. We have limited time resource. So here's some different ideas. Let me go through these. Number one, time online sketching from website. The idea here is, and a multiple of these, is there's a lot of time that gets wasted when you are just trying to decide what you're going to do. So it's like, oh, it's time to draw. Oh, what am I going to draw? What should I be doing? What do I need to practice on? What's my subject matter going to be? So you can take a bit of that out and just start, you know what, this is all like really small. If I make this bigger, you guys can actually read it. Why does text edit? Okay, where's my size here? There we go. Set that up. Yeah, there we go. I can read that better. So consider doing something like the websites. You can go out there to, it's like portrait drawing, photos that are set on a timer. I forget the name of the website, but it looked like timed portrait drawing website. And it will just bring up a portrait, and you can set the timer for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you're wanting, and then it will cycle through those. And that's an easy way to make good use of your time. Say I have, 30 minutes. Okay, we'll do, 5 or 6 different 5-minute portrait sketches. Number 2, weekly and monthly goals. Having a goal can really help getting the most out of your time. Again, having some sort of plan. If you don't know what you're supposed to do when you do have the time, you're not going to be as effective with it. So maybe it's, I want to do 4 environment images this month. So that's 1 a week. So every day you know kind of what you need to be working on. Number 3, follow exercises in a book. Again, if you have a limited amount of time, use something that's going to help set up a program or a work schedule for you, and following a book or exercises in a book can be good on that. Number 4, use pre-made assignments. Use lists or practices or randomize. This is, again, taking a course, taking a class. Those can give you assignments. Also, if you want to just do like a randomizer, I have my pages of how to create randomize a character to draw, randomize an environment to draw, and that again takes the questions out of it, and you know immediately what you're going to draw. When you do get the time to draw, and it is time, then try to limit the distractions. We lose a lot of time with distractions. That is your phone ringing, it is people interrupting you, it is getting dings that you got an email or a message on Facebook. So when you try to get that time, what you want to do is turn off your phone. You want to close out your browser windows so you're not concerned with checking your email or Facebook. Also, get other people involved. So if you're living in the household with other people, I live alone, so it's not an issue for me. But if you're living with some other people, then tell them, hey, for the next hour, I'm going to be drawing. I appreciate it if you can help me with this by not interrupting me. If there's anything that needs my attention, please wait until afterwards. Have the setup ready to go. It's like if you want to get in the habit of going to the gym, then it's easier to do if you keep your gym bag packed. If you're less likely to get up and go to the gym, if you have to go find your shoes, you have to go find your socks, you have to go find your shorts, your shirt, your stopwatch, whatever you need. But if it's all ready and it's sitting by the door, it's much easier to get in the habit of doing that. For us, that could be something like having a clean, physical desktop to work on. If you're, okay, you sit down, but now you need to clean off the dishes and you need to make room so that you can actually draw and all the books are getting in your way. Leave things and keep things cleaner so that you're ready to go. Number 7, set time every day. If you can make it a same time every day, it's going to be easier to get in the habit of doing it, and your brain is going to have an easier time shifting from non-art work to art work. If it knows, every day at 3 p.m. I draw, and the brain will sort that out and be able to get on board with you. Number 8, decide what you're going to be giving up to make the time. That's a big one. Maybe it's, hey guys, hey me, I'm going to draw more. Okay, then what are you not going to do in order to have the time to draw more? You can't just say, I'm going to draw more without also having to answer what you're giving up in order to have the time to do that. I am not going to play Call of Duty for that extra hour. I'm not going to read. I'm not going to, whatever it is. If you need to decide what that's going to be, then do so. Piggyback the habit, tie it to another action. If you're having a hard time getting into the habit of practicing, then consider trying to tie it to another habit. Maybe it's when I get home, I draw for 20 minutes. And so the action that you're already used to doing, which is getting off of work and, walking in the door after getting home, you immediately tie it into, then I draw. And so it's easier to tie a new habit into an old habit than to just create a new habit that's standalone. And number 10, set time when you're fresh, not exhausted. If you want to get more out of the limited time that you have, then do so. Then do so when you're feeling better. If you've already worked for 12 hours that day, and then you're, okay, now I'm going to work on my artwork, your brain is already tired. Your brain has a limited amount of, I forgot what the chemical is, but the chemical helps you make decisions. It's your critical thinking chemical, and you use it up over the course of the day. And the decision, your ability to make good critical decisions goes down. So if you want to do better, then what you need to do is try to do it earlier or at a time when you're not as exhausted. Okay, so there you go. That's the answer to your question. I might do a standalone video on that. Yeah, fine. And we will jump back over to Photoshop. Okay. So we're here, we're adjusting the light a little bit, adding some more color back in. Let's continue with some of the blue light. I'm gonna grab this guy again and grab something like that. I think the surface of this probably catching some more. We can get some more blue light, trying to tell some of the angles on this thing. I'm not exactly sure what all the angles are on this, but I'm just guessing. Also, we can get some blue light up along the top of this thing. I'll punch that up a little bit. And you notice that I'm trying to leave a little fade off. I'm not just doing a straight line on the edge. I'm giving a little mid-tone along with it. And then I'm trying to highlight what some of the, this is like a wrapped. So each one of these wrapping thicknesses is going to catch the light a little bit different as well. And because it is round, that edge light needs to be rounded as well. It's not going to just be a hard edge. Otherwise, it would have a different kind of form. The top of that. This can be catching some, right? Down that side. I think that's the old hand. We sort of need to paint out some of that before I get two hands up here. I think that's doing something like this, and then that's old hand back there. Here, let's take that out. All right. Now, down here, lower body, we need to add some here. Now this will have a straight edge on it because it is a straight object. It's not a rounded object. So I won't have a mid-tone on that one. Up here, I'm going to have that same thing here. Now this is a bit more rounded, so I'm going to let that fade off on the edge a bit there. And then same thing on this. Let's change that angle. Yep. That on the edge of these. Okay, that gives me quite a bit there. And yeah, I might put just a little bit there. I think think that here would be a bit more. Punch up some of those a little bit more. We're going to get some on the side of this hand over here. Okay, these knuckles are going like that. On the side of these knuckles a bit. That whole side is going to be lit. Making out those forms some. These are angled up towards that light. And then you're taking a little artistic license on these. I'm not sure how much of this would actually be catching blue light, but it's a good color difference. I don't want as much because it is getting closer to this warm light source, but it's a good color change there. Now let's start talking about this body and adjusting some of these colors. You need some of that skin tone, bringing that back over here, letting her not get as washed out there. Again, I'm not using black to darken this. If I were to do that, it would immediately make her look like she was an undead. What we want to do is darken it, but also bring lots of color into it. I have never used this angle one with fuzz on it. I sort of like that. That gives you a nice look. We're going to have some cast shadow from this hair coming up. So let's put that on there. And we're going to have cast shadow from this arm across that hair. And I think that stuff in the shadow is going to be shifting over to the violet side a bit more there. Trying to group that head hair color together a little bit. We're kind of all over the place. We had a lot of brights and a lot of blacks, so we're trying to unify that a bit more. Have a more set value range for all of it. And then you can have your, a couple of individual strands that's catching light here or there. Simpler overall. Now this ear also would be catching some light, and it's probably going to be pretty warm. Ears are generally warmer than the rest of the skin, so let's punch that up some good value there. Can you post later the finished paint over in the group, please? Oh, yeah, that's a good reminder. Yeah, we'll do that. India says, I bought the character design ebook, worth every penny. Thank you. Well, appreciate you picking it up, and I'm glad that you found it useful. For those who don't know, I do have a 66-page book on character design, drawing and rendering characters. Designing and drawing characters, and that is available in the store if you are interested. I put a lot of time into that one, and it just some of the best advice that I know on the subject. Okay, So we can flip that on and off and kind of see some of that difference. And let's see the rest of that skin. See, that's better. It's giving. Now we can run in here and we can put some more almost, you know, specular kind of light, but it's going to be more like that. Instead of the whole thing getting brighter, which is what you have there, it's a bit more specular, and I can fuzz it out a little bit. Yeah. And then same thing there. We have a bit of light there. Okay, where else do we need to do some work? Okay, we have some of these gems around here, but they're, they don't have as much punch as they could. So I'm gonna look at, oh yeah, these gems also need some blue on them, because they would be catching that light as well, and it would actually be going through some of it. So I'll do these in a couple of different passes. So it's going to have kind of a purple tint to it. Might have a bit on that one as well. I'm going to have some up here. I don't draw that many crystals or gems, so I am definitely spitballing this, but I hope I can get close enough. Again, working in an angle. That gives a bit more color to it, a bit more interest. Gems can also have like really bright highlights on those. So I'll just punch that way up. And I like that really bright tone here. So I use that a couple of other places. Also trying to work in some gradients. So it has definite planes to it, but the colors are also going to be graduated, I think, a little. So it'll go from like that color on this side, kind of bluish on that side. But I don't see that it would really get real black. We want to make sure that it still stays visible as a gem. Now this starts confusing me a bit here, because I'm not sure what that is. I don't know, is that part of this thing? Because you got a spike coming out of the side of your leg. I just don't get that, so I'm gonna take that out. I don't see how that's good, and also just is kind of confusing about how that would work. And this knee, I don't know what your pose was on this. This might be completely accurate, but for as much as that's going over, then that one's going on top of this one, like this leg's going over that one. It feels like this knee would be needing to come up. Like this knee should be overlapping that part of that leg a little bit. I could be wrong there. This is one of those places where I'd really want to take a reference photo, because I'm not real sure how that would work. Then you'd have a cast shadow of that on the other leg. And then you'd have all of your, like, you've got this thing. Do you not have that thing on this side? Because if so, I think it would be like over here, something like that. Because you would have to cross that up over the gem on the other side. So you got something like that, and then you have like a thing coming around it, and then you have like these things that are kind of wrapping around it. So that's going to be my guess. It's somewhere along there, but you need to check to see what looks accurate with a reference photo. Same thing here. We're losing the brilliance of this. So we want to make sure that we get some of that. And usually these are opposite corners. Like the light goes through these things, and then it pops on the other side as well. And then we can use some of that blue and let it catch up there maybe. Then this bottom side is going to be catching some other color. Maybe it's something like that. And somewhere in that mid-tone, that darker tone here in the middle. And then if it has, you know, some other smaller facets on it, you can establish those as well. Okay. Now, this is also an issue over here. Like I did that, you can't even see it. That is an issue because we can't make out really what's going on there. So I think changing the color of this back here is going to be helpful. We don't want to go real light with it. That's not going to help anything. But I'm going to make a new layer and see about, I think somewhere in that violet range, already in this color scheme, like something like this. But we either need to brighten up this shoulder piece, or we need to brighten up the background. Somebody needs to stand out from somebody else. And so that's one option. We can try this as well, which is we want to use some of this red tone, right? And let that catch this thing. As close as that is, that's definitely going to be catching some more light. All these angles facing back to it. This hand is tilting back to it as well, so I'm reckoning that that's going to be catching some light. And this side, the knuckles as well. Now this is getting a bit dark for the magic part, so I'm going to just shade over all that dark stuff and kind of bring that up in value. Let that keep from getting too dark, and that way it stays looking more magical. And we're going to let some of that light shine up on this thing. Just cool that off a little bit, and that way it'll stand out against some of these warmer tones. And then she's going to start casting a shadow back on it. So that's going to be going up here. And then this side of it, I don't know if this is a flat plane or whether this is like rounding around her. If it's rounding around her, then you're going to get like a blue light. I don't want that right on the elbow. You're going to get like a blue light on that side where you see the thickness. Is that running too high? Nope, that's low. Yeah, I think the settings are just set up too high for this computer. Sorry if it's lagging. That's probably on my side. Even the idea that this is having a cast shadow up on that wall. And then starts having some bluer light shining up on that wall. Now, we're losing some down there as well, so we need to do something so we don't lose all of that. We could have some light kind of bouncing up on the underside of the arm, and that way we don't lose that information. I'll let that kind of go back in there. Okay, let's also bring some subtlety to this. We can see on some of these, League of Legends images, like on this, some of it is a little more saturated than other parts. Some of it's more faded out, like over here. Look at this. There's differing value changes on some of these. One of these is really good. Like this has some other colors in it. And there's variations of how dense, I guess you could say, the magic is. And that's what I'm going to do, is start painting out some of this. Then go back in and add it where you need it, not 100% everywhere. Then I can come back with another layer. Do some more little magical flares and spots coming off of it. Then when it gets up here, what I can do is just put that all around the outside. Because red doesn't get brighter, it actually gets duller the closer it gets to white. What you want to do is have a more sudden change from the red color to the white. So it goes up to like there, and then it just jumps to white on the inside. This is also a light that we're not seeing much of on the areas surrounding it. So I want to pop up some of it along this arm. Let that kind of inform some of the shapes as well. Again, this is also another good opportunity to start telling some of the forms of what's going on. Not just little rim lights, but I'm trying to help use that to form the forms. Here, so we've got a combination of the blue and the red light on all of this, and that's fine. Can have a little edge light on that as well, as that's coming over. Help that sword to stand out a little bit by using some of that glow. So we can see the changes that we're starting to make here. So that has a lot of black. You can see where all the values start just sort of blurring together on that one. Yeah, YouTube isn't liking the settings that I have with OBS. I forgot to change them before I started streaming. Yeah, the encoding's overloaded, but I can't change anything while the stream is actually going. It's just the computer is not strong enough to render at this resolution, at this encoding. I would have to stop it in order to change anything, so sorry about that. Oh, now my whole computer is going slower. Anything over here? Yeah, it doesn't like those video settings. I'm sorry, guys. One day I will get all of my machines up to speed, and we'll be able to do these streams easier and not have to worry about which computer is strong enough to actually do it. This is another spot. Let's add some more light effects on this guy. He's a major light source. We can just add a little glow, some little magic motes or whatever around this thing. We don't really have any of the, interest back here, visual interest. So doing that. What else we want to do? So I'm just seeing this. We can pop some of the red tones on some of these shapes as well. That's a spherical shape, and it should be picking up a bit more light along there. And then, this is a, not spherical, cylindrical. So we want to get that spot that's closest to that light source, aiming at that light source. I'll let that pick up some. Actually might get some of the light if that's, obviously the same form. It's going to be coming up there, and that's going to be flattening off, so it's going to get more on the top. That is basically going to be all shadow. Probably push to the violet side. Like the forehead, same sort of tones going on there. That's pretty close to what I was wanting to go over. Anything else that we're missing? Well, we might try to do one more pass with the lights, extra bright lights. So like on this blue, we go up here and grab a really nice bright blue, shift it over this way a little bit, and just pop out a couple of places so that there's an even brighter version of that light that's kind of creating some specular lights. Now, I don't want to go just recopy everything that I've done, so I'm being a little selective. So it's just on the edges here or there, just a couple of spots, almost randomly, just picking out some spots that might be catching more full light, more of the 100% reflection. Really glassy things like these gems could definitely do that. Might get some specular lights on this side as well. Try to punch some of those up. That leather could, I assume this is leather. Leather could grab some. Yeah, if we shift those gems a little bit more to the violet side, it'll help them stand out some because they'll be slightly different color than what you have on the rest of it. So this sort of process, I'm honestly, it's not, I wouldn't say it's not that difficult. It is difficult if you don't know what you're doing. But it's not like redrawing the image. It's not like coming up with it. It's just about optimizing it. It's about adding in more colors, bringing in more angles, and that's going to be a lot easier than trying to come up with the original. All right, we have that. I'm going to add a darken layer. I want to set it to like 60%. I'm going to see about darkening this whole area down here. I don't need it that dark. We already have the light source right here, and again, the thigh is just not that important. So if I can deepen that down a bit. Yeah. I think that helps put the attention back up on her rather than just letting it all be down there as well. Okay. Yeah, it's almost 9, so running right up 2 hours. I was thinking this might take about 2 hours with answering the questions and everything. So if you're doing something like this, a good thing to think about is you kind of have your main one that you drew in, and then start adding in some smaller ones that are secondary, tertiary ones that kind of follow along And maybe they sort of weave in and out, and then that one might have a little one around it. And it gives a sort of energy to it when there is an interplay of them. And then the little ones, maybe they come off, but then they sort of fragment out into little ones, just little spots once it gets, you know, too weak to keep the line going. But I'm gonna assume you would paint that guy. I don't feel like painting him and coming out with a pose and everything, but that would need to be done. We want to look at the tangent between those. We don't want the finger going right on the edge of that, so we will extend that maybe a little past. And something else to consider is not having that directly towards us. If this whole sword was rotated a little bit to being more three-dimensional, I think that would probably help too. Trying to get that more of a You can see what I mean. It's sort of at this, instead of being straight across and flat to our view, we could think about making it more, you know, angled and either turned to her or turned away from her, you know, that sort of way. I mean, it's not bad like this. It just, it's a little more staged. Kenneth says, I'm really struggling with overthinking the composition for the Gilded Chimera. I have 0 reliable drawing processes right now. This is one, honestly, Kina, that even the most straightforward, I know it's not really about this image, but even a straightforward composition is fine. You don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. Like if you have the composition and it's, you know, something like this, then, you know, just having a centered composition is fine. Have some steps coming up. Have, you know, whatever your archway looks like. Maybe you have like a, you know, shape something like that, and you have a wall coming across here. And you have your creature and his big mane. You know, maybe he's sitting there. That, you know, everybody can understand what's going on there. And you have some of your trees in the background. And you can do some simple things like centered makes him feel powerful, stable, exactly the sort of characteristics that you'd want for a creature like that. You can have some of the trees doing this sort of thing so that they're keeping, you know, that sort of angle to them, which helps with the composition. And then you can have some of the gifts coming out like this. Again, you're keeping this sort of angled composition. Maybe you use the stonework. Maybe this, you know, it's like bricks, but the bricks are all angled. So you got bricks angling up like this, you know, like that sort of thing. So you start being able to use other things instead of trying to get real fancy with the viewpoint and all of that. You know, just doing this, and maybe you have some bushes or something along here. Then, you know, there is a forest around there. Maybe there's a forest on this side too. And you could have dapple light. Maybe you have some cool, you know, dapple light that's falling across the rocks and part of the steps and across the golden mane. So even a straightforward thing like that, if the design is well done, if you use angles well, if you use lighting in an interesting manner, then you don't necessarily need a like a dramatic composition, because it's not a dramatic scene. It's not two characters in the middle of some death battle, you know, between a dragon and a knight, where you want this really dynamic composition of angles and stuff. Something like this is fine. And just make sure that you have interesting shapes. Make sure that you're trying to use some interesting angles. Then give you more time to think about things like the architecture of the wall, the design of the character, the rendering of the scene. And that can go a long ways too. For like a magic image, which is sort of styled after that, then readability is one of the biggest things. And a overly complicated composition can it can bite you, right? It's not necessarily a good thing. So there we go. If you struggling with the composition, just go with something straightforward. Just make sure you do it well. That's going to be it for this Paintover. So that's where we started. Thanks again, Christ Suarez, for letting us use his image, talking a bit about the lighting. Last change, I would bring that down just a little bit more. There we go. Don't want to leave the head on the line, but I don't think we need quite so much on the top. So there we go. Going from this, trying to adjust the lighting, playing up that blue light on that left side, moving it off from just being a line on the top of things to actually being a light that is indicating the form, separating foreground from background, and adding some more nuance, especially into the face. Thinking about the planes of the face and trying to bring those out, bringing more color back into the image, making the gems pop a bit more, some more color, and thinking about the facets on those. Yeah. So thank you for everyone that was joined in on this stream, for all the questions that were asked. Hopefully we will do this or something like this after, not next week, but in 2 weeks. So next week is the Gilded Guardian Concepts Sketch Submissions. If you have not joined in on that, there is still time. Even if you want to get on the final without submitting a sketch, that's fine too. You can get all the information out on the Facebook group and on the Patreon page, I believe is out there too. So yeah, I will save this and share this on the Facebook group for anybody that wants to take a look at it and Photoshop themselves. So thanks again. UBS. All right, that's it for tonight. Thanks for joining. Till you see you next time. Keep drawing.